Hey, it's kind of cold, and I've been walking, so that's why I probably sound like this. Anyway, here, I'll turn on my audio just in case I need to get a backup. Okay, so this is a backup audio just in case that audio doesn't work. I'm not going to continue to re-record the same things over and over again. Okay, so I put up a video yesterday, and this is a topic I've been thinking about for some time, but just have not come to talk to you guys about. So today we're going to unpack it. Let's talk about Roseanne. Okay, so Roseanne is an American sitcom that originally aired from 1988 to 1997 on ABC with a short-lived revival in 2018. It was created by Matt Williams, and it starred Roseanne Barr. The show focuses on the working class Connor family living in the fictional town of Lanford, Illinois, and is widely known for its realistic portrayal of blue-collar American life, including fictional struggles, parenting challenges, and social issues. The main cast consists of Roseanne Barr, John Goodman, Laurie Metcalf, Sarah Gilbert, Why it mattered. It broke ground by showing a non-idealized American family. It tackled issues like domestic violence, racism, LGBTQ+ identity, and poverty. It balanced humor with real-life struggles, revival, and controversy. In 2008, Roseanne returned for a 10th season with high ratings. It was abruptly canceled after Roseanne tweeted racist remarks. The show was rebranded as The Connors, continuing without her. And so kind of the theme I wanted to unpack here is like, why do people refer to the Roseanne character specifically as white trash? Like, what does that mean? So people refer to the Roseanne character as white trash because she embodies and often embraces many of the traits that are stereotypically associated with the term, like working class, brunt, crass, unpolished, and living paycheck to paycheck. The Connor family doesn't dress or speak in a refined way. They don't hide their dysfunction, and they often rebel against social norms or expectations of politeness and class aspiration. Here's a breakdown of why that label gets applied fairly or unfairly. There's a working class setting. The Connors are constantly struggling with money, working blue-collar jobs, and dealing with real-life stress. For example, that alone is enough to invoke the white trash stereotype, especially when mixed with their unapologetic attitude. And then there are cultural markers. Roseanne smokes, yells, eats junk food, watches trashy TV, and doesn't shy away from being aggressive or messy. These are often visual and behavioral cues that society, especially more affluent or polished classes, associate with the term. Attitude and language. Roseanne's character is intentionally loud, sarcastic, and unapologetically unladylike in the traditional sense. She doesn't hide her flaws or sugarcoat her opinions, and this disrupts middle-class norms of respectability and decorum. The gendered judgment. The white trash label often gets applied more harshly to women, especially when they defy traditional roles of feminine humility or domestic perfection. Roseanne did that consistently and proudly. Reclaiming the insults. Roseanne Barr herself often played with that label. She leaned into the stereotype to mock society's class snobbery, and in that sense, Roseanne the show can be seen as a subversive act, making white trash characters the emotional and moral center of the story. But it's complicated. The label is classist and is often used to demean people based on income, education, geography, or behavior. While some viewers use the term derisively, others see Roseanne as a heroic representation of working class America that had rarely been seen on TV before. So then I wanted to understand, how did the show reinforce this stereotype, and how does it compare to the WASP image portrayed by Taylor Swift in an Evermore and folklore era? So on one hand, Roseanne as a brash, working class sitcom that flirts with white trash stereotypes. And on the other hand, there's Taylor Swift's Folklore Evermore era, which leans into the aesthetic of a romanticized poetic rural whiteness. Both represent versions of white womanhood in America, but filtered through class, aesthetic, and cultural capital. So, how Roseanne reinforced the white trash stereotype. While the show had progressive elements, it also leaned into certain tropes that reinforced the white trash stereotype, especially in the early seasons. It had a crass humor and dysfunction, constant yelling, insults, toilet humor, and sibling fights. Scenes often showed messy kitchens, loud arguments, and bad parenting. Poverty was presented as chaotic, angry, and a bit hopeless at times. Then there's the visual stereotyping. The Connors' house was cluttered and unfashionable. Costuming often involved flannel, sweatpants, stained shirts, deliberately non-glamorous. It visually coded the characters as not aspirational, which feeds the white trash trope. Then there's the resistance to refinement. Roseanne mocks middle-class women, bosses, and teachers who try to present as more refined or educated. Instead of rising above, she often leans into being rude or confrontational as a badge of authenticity. Let's compare that to the Folklore Evermore, a waspy reimagination. So Taylor Swift's Folklore Evermore era presents a kind of pastoral, melancholic whiteness, but one that's also quiet, literary, and privileged in a very different way. There's cottagecore and the New England Gothic. Cardigans, foggy woods, pianos in empty houses, ivy-covered cabins. This is not about material struggle, it's about emotional depth and aesthetic introspection. Then there's Wasp in Image in Disguise. Taylor plays kind of a reserved, haunted poet, a white woman who feels everything deeply, but always with grace and poise. Even her heartbreaks are elegant. She cries in lace. Literary distance from reality. Folklore and Evermore characters like Betty and August Girl often experience pain, but it's fictionalized, romanticized, and beautifully scored. There's no bill collector, no screaming match in a greasing kitchen, just longing and metaphors. Why this matters. Both portray white womanhood, but they reflect and shape how class changes the story. Roseanne shows what happens when white women are poor. Society mocks them, calls them trash, and fears their anger. Taylor Swift shows what happens when white women are ethereal and educated. Society romanticizes them, trusts their inner world, and gives them space to express pain beautifully. And so I wanted to unpack how Roseanne is mocking middle-class women and how her fatness plays into the current trend toward a clean girl aesthetic and extreme thinness. So Roseanne's mockery of middle-class femininity to her fatness and contrasting that with today's clean girl aesthetic and thinness revival. And that gives us a window into how American culture has always policed, punished, and aestheticized women's bodies based on class and conformity. In Roseanne, especially in the early seasons, the character relentlessly mocks the kind of women who volunteer for the PTA, wear matching pantsuits, speak in soft, polite tones, cook with organic vegetables, and want to keep up appearances. These women represent aspirational, upwardly mobile, white, middle-class femininity, the kind Roseanne sees as performative, hollow, and disconnected from real life. How Roseanne parodies them. She rolls her eyes at politeness. She loudly challenges their parenting choices. She weaponizes humor to deflate their status. She never tries to join them, only to expose them. And this defiance makes her powerful, but also culturally dangerous. And she refuses to aspire. And America doesn't like women who give up on aspiration. Fatness as a rebellion, but also as a target. Roseanne's body was an undeniable part of her character. She was fat, unapologetically so, and not glamorized. In a media landscape dominated by thin, pretty women, even in working class roles like on Full House or Who's the Boss, Roseanne's body was a visual affront to both televised femininity and to American aspiration. Fatness in the show. Roseanne eats junk food on screen. She wears baggy clothes. She doesn't contour her face. And she never tries to flatter her figure. Her body is part of the humor, but also her resistance. But the trade off is her fatness becomes a signifier of failure, social aesthetic, and moral. Critics and audiences use it to justify disrespect. She's loud and fat, trashy and gross. Her body was politicized, even more so when she used her real life platform to push boundaries off screen. Enter the clean girl aesthetic. Fast forward to now, the clean girl aesthetic is everywhere on Instagram and TikTok. Coded versions of feminine perfection, glossy hair pulled back in a claw clip, dewy skin and minimal makeup, gold hoops and matcha lattes, Pilates green juice, glossier and beige everything, and crucially, thinness is back, dressed up in health and wellness rhetoric. Why it's the opposite of Roseanne. It's quiet, delicate, and almost passive. It always says, I am under control of my body, emotions, calories, and image. It aligns with wealth, whiteness, and subtlety. It rewards you for not taking up space. Where Roseanne's body was visible, loud, and messy, and undeniably real, the clean girl aesthetic is all about disappearing into perfect neutrality. Class is the through line. This is ultimately about who gets to be seen as beautiful, valid, and worthy in American media, and how class mobility is now aesthetic as much as economic. Roseanne's fatness marked her as stuck in a class she refused to escape from. The clean girl aesthetic is a visual resume. I'm disciplined, tasteful, and upwardly mobile. Even as society claims to embrace body positivity, fat women are still excluded from these aspirational aesthetics unless they perform extreme polish, sweetness, or humor to compensate. Roseanne never did that. That's why she was mocked and why she mattered. There's kind of something also that I think is a bit interesting. So it's this idea of like her fatness is a signifier of failure. Like, what does that mean? Right? So her fatness becomes a signifier of failure, social, aesthetic, and moral. It's the perfect thesis for understanding Roseanne and the cultural position of women like her. Let's unpack exactly how that plays out in her character and in broader American discourse. So, social failure, falling short of the American dream. Roseanne's fatness operates as a visual cue that she has not made it. She is not upwardly mobile. She is not trying to better herself through dieting, gym memberships, or aspirational consumerism. She stays in her small house, keeps her factory job, and doesn't seek to transcend her class. In a country where whiteness was supposed to be a ticket to success, Roseanne's fatness signals a rejection or exclusion from that narrative. It's not just that she's poor, it's that she doesn't perform the hunger for the respectability the American dream demands. Aesthetic failure violating the feminine ideal. From the moment she appears on screen, Roseanne violates the visual codes of femininity. She doesn't wear makeup to contour or conceal. Her hair is unstyled, her clothes functional, oversized, or unstylish. She takes up physical space in a culture that worships thinness as beauty, virtue, and control. Fatness here becomes a failure to please, to be decorative, quiet, or small. She's not aspirational in any influencer's sense. Her aesthetic is deliberate non-compliance. She's a woman who refuses to make herself visually tolerable, and in doing so becomes offensive to a culture that demands beauty as a form of discipline. Moral failure, the body as evidence of vice. In American culture, particularly in media and advertising, the body is seen as a reflection of moral character. Thinness means discipline, self-respect, cleanliness, and purity. Fatness means laziness, excess, gluttony, and chaos. Roseanne's fatness is constantly read by audiences and critics as a moral failure, not just unhealthy, but undeserving. Her appetite, both literal and metaphorical, is seen as out of control. Add that to her working class accent, sharp tongue, sexual agency, defiance of motherly sainthood, and you get a figure that threatens the patriarchal capitalist order, not just undesirable, but subversive. Roseanne as a cultural Warshash. I don't even know what that is. She offends because she embodies all the things women are told not to be. Fat, loud, angry, poor, unapologetic, unpretty. Her body is not a failure because it's fat. It's failure because it refuses to perform remorse. And that's why her fatness isn't just a physical condition, it's a cultural narrative, one that's used to punish non-compliant women and draw a line between the good women and the bad ones. I don't know. What do you guys think?